Greetings. What I want to do here is have a look at Part 1, Academics Writing. As you'll be aware, what you need to do here is describe and analyse a chart, a graph, a table or a process. There's nothing too complex here, but there are one or two traps. And what I'm going to do is look at each of these four different types of diagram you can get, because they each present a different problem. Okay, here we are looking at the table. The complexity with the table is it's not visual. It probably takes more time to analyse. With the bar chart or the line graph, it's easy, you can see a picture, and for most people it's easier to look at a picture than raw numbers. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is this. What type of language are we looking at here? One thing a lot of candidates do, they revise, learn very carefully the language of change. Now, in this table, we have annual CO2 emissions in thousands of metrics of tons, and we have percentage of global CO2 emissions. There isn't any change taking place here. And if you like, this is lesson number one. There are two types of graph and table. There are the graphs and tables which show a change over a period of time. Then, if you get one of those, yes, you do need the language of change, the famous trend language, increase, decrease, etc. This one, it doesn't work. It's inappropriate. What we have here is a static table. There's no change. And what is the language you need here? It's really quite simple. The language you need primarily is the language of comparison. Now, with the table, it is possible that you have a time element in the table. Here we're looking at the pie chart, however. With the pie chart, it is very unlikely, I would say almost impossible, that there will be a time element to it. So here, the language you're going to need is the language of comparison. On this one, how an average British family spends its monthly income, we've got percentages, so you need to look at the language of percentages. We need some synonyms here. A good synonym for percentage, or very close synonym, is proportion. But really and truly, the language you need here is the language of comparison. And the language of dealing with numbers, 34%. How can we say that? Just over a third. So, another type of language we need, particularly with pie charts, is the language for dealing with numbers. Okay, here we are with another chart type. This one is the bar chart, of course. This is a very common type of chart. In this one, there may be a time element, there may not be a time element. You need to look and see. Here, we have two bar charts put together, and this is something you need to be aware of. Very commonly in the exam, you don't get just one chart or graph, you get two, or sometimes even three. In a sense, this helps you, because one of the difficulties in task one is how to organise. And the logical thing to do is, if you have two charts, one paragraph for one, one paragraph for the other, it solves a lot of your problems, in fact. But perhaps it takes more time to analyse. You need to look from one to the other. Now, what have we got here? We got two bar charts, and they're quite similar really. The total railway network in the 7 most populous countries worldwide in 2006, and then the same thing for the total road network. Now, something which I'm focusing on in this video is the type of language we need. What language do we need? Again, a little like previously, the key language is the language of comparison. So we can say in the total railway network, the USA had easily the highest amount of kilometres rail track. Likewise, or in the same way, it had the largest amount of road network. So likewise there, it's a nice comparison word. Okay, here we are with the line graph. This is not always the case, but very typically this will be time-based. And the key to this is reading the title. Here we've got from July 2007 to July 2009. We've got a time element from one time to another time. And that's an important point. It's not just a time, but we have a change of time. And if we do, then you can be almost certain that you're going to need to use some of the trend language. How things have increased, how things have decreased, how things have risen, how things have fallen, and so on. And one tip here is have a look at the axes here. Here we've got the y-axis, that's a percentage. Here, on the x-axis this time, we have a time element from July 2007 to September 2009. And this is a top tip. Look at the axis, read the title. Does it tell you you've got a change of time? Do you have a dynamic graph? If so, then you need the trend language. Now, here we are with the final major chart type. This one is the diagram, or the process. This is much the least common, but in a sense it's the one which may cause you the most problems, simply because many students or candidates don't prepare for this one. What we're looking at here is the process of making a film. What we see, there are 5 stages in this process: the development stage, the pre-production stage, the production stage, the post-production stage, and the sales and distribution stage. Now, you may be needing a certain amount of film vocabulary here, but the language you need here and the language you need to prepare is the language of a process. The language for sequencing, first, then, next. And the language isn't particularly complex, but it's something you do need to prepare beforehand and be ready to produce in the exam.